are you going to call the item?
It's not my item. It's community development, isn't it?
Wait, yes, are you going to just call
I'll
that?
recognize Councilman DiPolito to call the community development agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an approval to submit a grant application for the Community Development Block Grant Stimulus Allocation in the amount of $125,611 with no required match from the city. Ms. Field.
Thank you. At the meeting on Monday evening, several questions were raised and comments made in regard to the projects that we had proposed, and the request was made for more information and more analysis, especially in regard to the Sway Ranch Road Connection project. So yesterday, Steve's staff and Stu's staff, the community development staff, did spend a considerable amount of time, and let me just start with the Sway Ranch, and Steve, you jump in terms of what we did and what our findings were. And let me start at the bottom bullet and work my way up to whether or not the project we believe to be feasible. We first looked at the implications for the right-of-way in terms of costs and timing, because that would certainly play a major role in a project that needed to be done within a certain time frame. There's one basic large landowner for that area, Mr. Hodges, and Clyde did spend a considerable amount of time, Clyde Strickland, talking to him yesterday, and did succeed. We didn't get it in writing, but we feel very, very confident that he will donate the entire right-of-way to us.
Wow.
Good job, Clyde.
Good job.
And then there is a small little sliver of another parcel of land that we would need that is not owned by Mr. Hodges. But in terms of timing, in terms of holding up the project from a right-of-way and cost perspective, we think that we have dealt with that issue satisfactorily. We did design 2 road alignments to make sure that it worked within the land that we had available. One was fancier than the other. One included a roundabout. One was just your basic T intersection. And both of those worked, and both of those came within the initial cost estimate that we had given you of needing for construction $291,000. So that number still held. Last week, not last week, but also we looked at, because we talked about the issue of installing a water line at the same time while we were doing the road construction, what that would cost, and whether it could be a standalone project or needed to be part of the road construction project. And talking to Stu, because there was enough space in the right-of-way off the road, we felt that installation of water line pipe could go in either during the road construction or could go in separately. And the cost for that project would be approximately $150,000. And so that, you'll see, is reflected as a project either as a standalone or in conjunction with this connection. So therefore, when you come up to the top bullet, which is what is the feasibility of completing the proposed project within the mandated time frame, I also need to bring to your attention that we tried very hard to get from HUD yesterday determination as to how much they were going to hold to that September 30th, 2010 deadline. That if we were under construction and 80% done but not completely done, would that be held against us, or would they consider that to be a good performance? No one yesterday was willing to tell us that we could go beyond that September 10th, 2010 deadline. So I think from a planning purpose, we need to use that deadline as D-Day in terms of being finished with this project. So having said all of that, Steve, why don't you, because it's your shop, why don't you respond to how comfortable you feel doing this project within that timeline?
Okay, thanks, Kathy.
Question though, when you break that down, and there's 2 potential projects, the water line and the.
Yes, and
we only have to finish one.
No, it depends on what you submit to HUD.
So if you submitted the water line to HUD at $150,000, it's $125 on that project. That's all you've got to finish.
That would be my question. Yeah. Could we secure the right-of-way while it's being offered, even if there's a reversion or it's not built in a certain time frame or whatever? Get that secured, build the water line, which uses all the money, and Stu intimated even with issues because you're going under the stream, he thought it would be able
Well,
to
actually,
be done.
I can address that. I gave you my concerns about that stream. When we went down there and looked at it, it's a ditch. I mean, it's really not. I don't know. Well, I don't really know what. There's a swale. There's a swale, but it really doesn't have an outfall.
It's not a perennial stream.
It is not. So
If somebody's
there
developing
is
a property, it
there's
would
a
be a
very
perennial
large
stream.
detention. The road really falls off into this large detention area down there, and we have decided that we can stay on the bank and not go down in there. So the environmental concerns that I had on Monday have really pretty much gone away. But it's the timeline that ends up being the sort of Damocles over this whole thing.
Well, I get it. I don't want to endanger the money or put you in a position where you're sweating bullets. But as the mayor said, there's 2 projects. We've got a willing donor, not even a seller, a donor. If we could get this project done.
Can we have Steve just do his presentation
Well,
and we can ask questions later?
I can. Mine's real fast. We can and will build that road, but I just don't feel comfortable that there are too many things that can go wrong in 18 months.
Let's back up to not the road, but the water line.
I'm just saying, from my road perspective,
Well,
Mayor,
that's-
I do not feel comfortable that we can do this road in 18 months.
I think water lines are it's at half the size of the project. You don't have to do the utilities. It's underground. I think the water line. I think I'm sorry Stu's not here, but
Well, Alice is here in his
Alice,
stead.
what are you doing?
Now, however, I need to say this from a staff perspective. Yesterday in meeting, the waterline project is definitely viable, and Alice can speak to that. However, if you look at the priority of waterline projects in the target area, Sway Branch is not the highest priority. There are other waterline projects that are higher priority, and those are here for discussion. I just want to lay that on the table for you.
I know that, but I see this as if we do one, we do both. My understanding was we need to do both of these projects, water line and road.
Correct.
Sue's standpoint. It may not be the top priority, but once again, when you're doing construction, when you mobilize these things, it makes sense to do both of them at once.
It does.
Councilman Tallis.
My issue Monday night was not that any of these projects should or shouldn't be done. They're all good. They're all needed projects. We have money here that is coming from an external source, still taxpayer, but bigger pool, for water system improvements that serve 20% of our population who are just as deserving as any other, but there's an enterprise fund. Those of us in Fulton County pay into our enterprise fund, and those do the system improvements for our systems. It's like any other enterprise fund. With this external source, we have used it for water line improvements before. It can be done. I'm just saying we have an opportunity here where you could serve our water system customers and preserve a corridor that will do a system improvement that will serve all of our citizens. And that is why I'm suggesting that we weight this project harder, because it's going to potentially impact all of our citizens as opposed to that 20%, while at the same time serving that 20% and saving them money. So that's where I'm.
Well, I don't have a disagreement on that. I just want to make sure that whatever we do here, we're not going to put the $125,000 in jeopardy. And if it's doing the water line and we have to find another $25,000 to make sure that happens, that's fine. But the road connection, we'll still have to find monies to do the roads. I mean, that's not a, hold on, Mayor, hold on. The Sway Branch is not a priority on our roads, on our transportation projects. I'm just laying it out to you. So I think what we have to do, instead of saying we're going to do the water line and the road with the 125, let's look at the water line, and then we can discuss the road as a separate issue. Because again, what I'm hearing from this council that I've been sitting on for a little over a year is priority, priority, priority. So we have to make sure that whatever we do on our transportation projects, it has, like you said, a regional impact or a citywide impact. A citywide impact. So I would rather look at discussing how we're going to spend $125,000 today and discuss the road issues at another session.
But preserve the corridor, which we did not do in Commerce Parkway, where there's Kroger sitting now, we were able to do by the skin of our teeth, where Mansell is going to
Right.
come through at the bank, preserve that corridor. If you've got a willing donor and you can
Right.
get this in there and preserve that whole corridor, not just for the
Right.
water line, build water
Right.
line, but for the road,
Right.
do it.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but all I'm saying is, let's talk about how we're going to spend the $125,000, which does not include the road right now. So that's what I'm looking at right now, is how we're going to spend the $125,000, what projects. And if it's Sway Branch, if the, council wants to do Sway Branch, that's fine. But I think we need to discuss the road at a later time. But again, if we do Sway Branch, we get everything that we need for the road.
Let's hear about the water line project before we take more questions, so we get more information on the table.
The water line at Sway Branch. We ran our water info model for that connection to connect from Warsaw up to Market Street, yes, Marketplace. And it greatly improves the fire flow and the looping capability, and we would highly recommend improving that. I mean, it's on our list to do that. So improving the looping and the fire flow protection to that area is a good benefit.
Here's the next question. Are you confident that you can get this project, get this project completed to meet the HUD requirements?
The water line?
Yes.
The water line, yeah.
Thank you. Now we'll take questions. Ken Eigelhart.
Well, just going to the previous comment that whether it was prioritized or not, is what we just heard at the beginning, that the Sway Branch water line is not the highest priority.
Sway Branch water line is not. The Maxwell Road water line that's also on your list, that's actually higher than any of the water lines on the list.
And with that being 214, though, that's maybe
Right.
higher than so if you take
That's
that
right.
out, is Sway Branch then is the next highest priority, or are the other two, the Crestwood and Shadowwood, Crestview and Shadowwood?
Well, Crestview, that's a drainage problem for a road drainage. Shadowwood is lower, but it's more within the dollar amount. So you get the improvements for the Sway Branch water line are much higher than the Shadowwood. But we have Shadowwood because it's within the dollar amount.
Okay. Well,
That would be next.
I want to go back and support what David Tollison talked about. I agree with Becky. We don't need to talk about the road as an independent item. We need to look at how we're going to spend this $125,000. But we're looking at a project here that does three things. If you look at the overall project, we open up a corridor, we create connectivity, we improve our water system, we improve our transportation system, and on top of all that, we've got a major redevelopment benefit. And so that is something that you've got to factor into this project. So you really get a lot of leverage out of this project. And I know the $125,000, if you're just looking at the water project, might not be the top priority. But when you look at all the other benefits that come in here, it's the top of my priority list. Councilmember Wynn.
Yes, Ms. Love.
Yes.
Since this project is estimated at $150,000, and so we're approximately $25,000 short, how does the enterprise fund, is there enough in the revenue to make up that shortfall?
It is. There are a number of projects in their capital plan. And so these are in there. It's just, swapping priorities around. There is ample fund balance or reserves here to make up that difference. We did look at that, so that's not a problem for this project.
And Alice, again, I'm hearing from you that if we did the Sway Branch, that we have no problem meeting the 18-month deadline to get
Correct.
it done.
Mhm.
Okay.
Just the water line, no
Okay,
road.
no, the water line. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Other questions? Councilmember Lori Henry.
This is just completely separate. I'm not suggesting that we substitute this or anything. But the Crestview Circle Norcross Street drainage, that's a safety issue.
Right.
It's
kind of a standalone.
And we need $20,000 for that. I mean, people end up in the ditch because we're not fixing that.
Correct.
So
Or crumpling that guardrail.
is this going to put this project in the ditch, or where are you proposing we get the $20,000? Because that project has to be done sooner rather than later.
I think I think we're advocating one water line and this drainage project together is what we submit to Fulton County for using that money.
Councilmember Orleans.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to ask. So submit both of them. If we do the water line at Sway Branch, and the drainage.
Right.
So that's 20 grand goes to the drainage, doesn't
Yes.
come out of the general fund.
Correct.
And then we've got a little less, but it comes out of the enterprise fund,
Yes.
so it's not the general. So
Right.
that would be the way to do it.
That's our staff recommendation.
And once we bid it, the 150 is just a guesstimate. We may be
Right.
fortunate and it come in lower, and the amount that we have to make up out of the water fund is actually less than what we
Yeah,
thought.
so we'd have 20 grand for the drainage, and we'd have 105 for the water line, plus from the enterprise fund, which
Is that a
saves the
motion?
general fund that way.
Is that a motion?
It's his department,
so.
so it's, yeah, that's a motion.
Community development is public works, is transportation.
With Public Works right now, well, it's public, I need either Public Works or Transportation make a motion.
I make a motion.
I thought this, didn't I introduce this item?
You can
Yeah.
introduce it.
You
Yes,
make
you
it.
introduce this.
Somebody-
Back to Rich.
Oh, I'm
Not
sorry.
that I'm territorial, but
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, I was thinking water line, but you're right, this started with you, didn't
Yeah,
it?
CDBG money,
it's a
Back to Rich.
CDBG money.
full circle.
Well, I also didn't get a chance to make my comments.
Comments
So,
from Rich.
The important thing
Could
first.
save a lot of time here.
I like the idea of Sway Branch doing the water line because of the fact that it doesn't increase the fire flow, which I think will, which always supports redevelopment, and then the idea of getting the progress started here. We've been talking about Sway Branch, even though it hasn't been on a project list. But we've been talking about it for 8 years that I'm aware of, at least from a redevelopment standpoint. So there is somebody on Sway Branch who's interested in doing something. It's not like it's going to get started tomorrow, but we do have interest there. So I think it kind of meets all our criteria. We've got local area interest. It promotes connectivity. It promotes redevelopment. So it does all those things. So I'm very much in favor of doing the water line for now. I'd like to get us to start looking at the road as well. And let's go ahead and, as David was saying, let's take advantage of it and get the right of way as soon as we possibly can. So having said all that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the grant submittal and placing as priorities, the first priority being the Crestview Circle Norcross Street drainage improvements, and then the second being the Sway Branch Road water line for costs of $20,611 and $150,000 roughly.
Motion by Councilmember DiPolito. Is there a second?
Second.
By Councilmember Orleans and Wynn.
But with the caveat that we get the right of way for the road.
I know we have at least one interested citizen who is, but perhaps he should sit there quietly and not risk saying anything to jeopardize this motion. Does anyone wish to be heard?
I think it'd be a great idea. If you need support from everyone on Marketplace, I can rally that, anything that we can do. As you know, these fiery emails from me, I'm the squeaky wheel, but I've vested interest in that street and that area. And I think that's a fragile area, obviously, Holcomb Bridge and where my property is. I think all of us on the street welcome to be connected like that and to get some traffic through there and encourage anything that can sort of build that whole block as kind of one block off Holcomb Bridge. So,
Chris, for the record, would you give your name and address?
yes, my name is Chris Watford, WATFORD. My home address is 205 Shadowbrook Drive here in Roswell, 30075.
Any other comments from the floor? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the...
Well, I just want to make sure that Councilman Orleans was heard, that make sure that the right-of-way is for the road also. Let's make sure that we get everything that we need, so when we do that
Absolutely.
road, we can go in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I just want to make sure.
And just one additional comment is that this has now brought this whole project way up high on the radar screen. So as we look for future projects for CDBG, which we're always looking for good projects, we have really done a lot of the homework. So as we look for future funding projects, we've got a great one now.
Yeah.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. Ms. Love says she wishes to ask for closure, discuss a matter of personnel. Do we have a motion for closure?
Motion?
Motion by Councilmember Wynn. Do we have a second? Second by Tollison. All in favor, raise their hands.
You need to go downstairs. So that-
Orleans abstains. Does that mean you're not going to be there?
No.
Passes.
I'm hold.
The motion passes.
I'll hold.
Good meeting. Thank you. That's going to be great.
I think so.
Study.
No, you have it.
No, he's going to, how much time is it? How much time is on the?